In this episode of Film Stock Reviews, I'm reviewing Jurassic World Dominion. Jurassic World Dominion is directed by Colin Trevorrow and stars Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and Sam Neill. Now, Colin Trevorrow comes back to direct in this franchise after directing the first movie, Jurassic World. Now, the reason he came back to direct Jurassic World Dominion is rumored is because he had a falling out and had creative differences from directing Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Now, not only is this story very different, it's very, I want to say, and get this off right away, it's very lackluster. You want dinosaurs in this movie? You're not going to get that many dinosaurs in this movie. This is a story-driven, forward-based, human elemental movie where two stories are going on at one time, where Chris Pratt as the character of Owen Grady and the character that Bryce Dallas Howard plays as Claire, as they go on a search for their so-called daughter that they adopted, Maisie, from the Fallen Kingdom movie, who we find out was Benjamin Lockwood's daughter. He originally raised as his granddaughter. The character of Maisie is really annoying at times, but then you understand why her character was included in this so-called franchise. Not only that, the characters of the original or the OG characters of Laura Dern as Ellie Sattler, Jeff Goldblum as Dr. Ian Malcolm, and Sam Neill as Alan Grant, they have their own story where they're trying to figure out this whole locust situation where these giant locusts, yes, these huge locusts like that big, trying to figure out what's happening. Now, the villain in this movie is Dodgson. Yeah, the character of Dodgson. Like, remember that scene in Jurassic Park where Wayne Knight's character, the actor, goes, "Oh, Dodgson, see, nobody cares. This is Dodgson." His character is the villain in this, and he is the CEO of Biosyn Genetics, mostly a rival company of InGen, who you know from the Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom movie. It's very different because not only that, we have Danielle Pineda as come back in this, and Justice Smith come back in cameo roles from their characters that they played in Fallen Kingdom. Omar Sy is back as Barry, and B.D. Wong as Henry Wu is in this as well. Everything is interesting because the story is the sixth in the entire franchise, but the third in the Jurassic World trilogy. Now, this evidently is the ending of the trilogy or the franchise, what they say. That's the reason they brought back the original actors. Now, there's another character that's introduced in this, played by DeWanda Wise, who plays Kayla Watts, who is more so a former Air Force pilot and, flies and gets people out of certain situations. There are great action scenes in this. The action scene that takes place in Malta is really good, but it felt like an espionage spy thriller. Like all of a sudden they just threw in a Mission Impossible cohesive story there to try and look for Maisie, and then while that's happening, they're trying to look for Blue, the Raptor's young child, Beta. So while that happens, our characters come together in the end, and they try and get off the island, and it's all like, it's not cohesive as a story. It's really lacking at times. The movie's very long. It's a very, very long movie. It's close to 146 minutes long. It's 2 hours and 26 minutes. But I do love seeing the characters of the original from the first Jurassic Park movie. I am a huge fan of that movie. It was one of my first movies I saw in theaters. I have to represent it. It's so, so good. But it just didn't do it justice in this film. I feel like they just called Jeff Goldblum up and be like, "Hey, can you just play yourself in this movie?" Which he did. He basically, the comic relief is Jeff Goldblum. But the character that he plays, Ian Malcolm, has been right since the beginning of the storytelling of all the Jurassic Park movies. He knows what he's talking about, but he's a mathematician, but he has this theory that you can't mix certain things. Don't play God, don't do this over certain dominions and like that. It's really interesting how that works. And Sattler is brought in as one of the, the paleobotanist who kind of is trying to figure out certain things of what's happening with the locust. She goes to Alan Grant basically because she needs a witness to go into Biosyn to get a sample of these locusts and see what they're doing. The character of Louis Dodgson is really interesting because the character wasn't that much of a focal point in the very first Jurassic Park movie. Of course, there is a reference to back where we see the Barbasol shaving cream when, you unscrew the bottom and that's it. He does have that again in this film. And the actor that plays him is Campbell Scott. Campbell Scott gives a good performance, but you could say that there are too many villains in this. It's like you have Dodgson, and then you have the character of the kidnappers that are, Santos and Malta. You have Delacourt going on, who is another kidnapper. It's just like they didn't know what to do with the villains in this. Campbell Scott as Louis Dodgson this is a different actor playing the role from the very first movie. You bring him in, and he's the main focal point of Biosyn. You could say he's like the Steve Jobs, Tim Cook, Apple CEO, because the way he looks, the white hair, the outfit he wears, it's just that gives that look and feel to it. He gives that off. And it's really interesting how every single villain now in a science fiction technology movie that has to do with bioengineering, dinosaurs, or technology for that matter, looks like someone from Apple or Amazon, which is really weird, so to say. The villains were underwhelming. There's a character in this movie called Ramsey, who was so for a friend to Dr. Ian Malcolm that Jeff Goldblum plays. The character of Ramsey, played by Mamadou Athie, who is also, if you remember the Netflix series Archive 81, that horror series, he was in that. He gives a great performance in this. He really stands on his own. But I feel like there were so many characters in this movie, they didn't know where to go or what to do with them. There's a total, I want to say, of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, close to 9 to 10 characters in one scene in the end of this movie. Now, the thing that really disappointed me was the dinosaurs. You want to go see this movie for the dinosaurs because it's Jurassic. It's what it is. It's not. Maybe, I don't know, I want to say 15% of the movie is dinosaurs. We don't see the Mosasaurus at all that much. We see him in the first 15 seconds, and then we see him in the last 2 seconds. So a total of 20 seconds for the Mosasaurus. The T-Rex is in this. The T-Rex does have a fight scene with a Gigantosaurus, the biggest known carnivore the planet has ever seen. What is Dr. Alan Grant said in the movie. And basically, it's the fight of the apex predator who rules the kingdom. It's really good, and it's really done well, but it's lackluster. There are different elements where everyone's trying to escape more velociraptors. Velociraptors, for some reason, in this entire franchise, from Jurassic Park up until now, in 6 movies, the velociraptors are always the villains, except Blue. Blue is not the villain. We understand then why Maisie was created. Her mother did everything, and how Blue is created, and how Blue was able to reproduce and, give birth. Something with DNA transfers and everything. And it's really, really interesting how everything was done. There's a lot of callback to the very first movie, Jurassic Park, and even the Lost World Jurassic Park, with how when the dinosaurs are seen through certain edits, and how there's a fire scene, and then all of a sudden how Ian Malcolm uses the flare, but then now it's fire, but he understands what he can do now in order to not make that mistake that he did in the first movie. There are a lot of, mentions of Jurassic Park on Isla Nublar and then Isla Sorna, what happened with, Jurassic Park 3, what happened with The Lost World, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, the eruption of the volcano. It's like an interesting closing for a big, big franchise like this. But I feel like they could have done a little bit more, just a little bit more. I'm a huge fan of this franchise, but I feel like they didn't know where they were going with the story because there were 2 different stories happening. But then Maisie is the one that brings all the characters from the new films and the old films together because of what's happening. It's great to see the old classic dinosaurs in this from Jurassic Park, and even the Lost World Jurassic Park, and even Jurassic Park 3, some of them. And they say this is the conclusion, this is the closing, that's it. Just end it. End it now before it gets too much too soon, because you can't go anywhere else with this. This movie is the closing of a big franchise. Over close to 30 years plus 3 decades of Jurassic Park movies, 6 films. That's perfect. I mean, these movies people will see. The first movie, Jurassic Park, what's it like? Let's see the park when it's not operational. Jurassic World, let's see what the park is like when it is operational, but make it so forth like a Disney World attraction. Bring in guests and people like that. Okay. But over time, when you add too many characters, you don't understand where the science is going. You don't understand how to bring back the original characters. Just because we wanted to see them would have been great. You could have made this a standalone Jurassic World movie with the characters that Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard play in their own term. Close that out. And then continue the opposite where it's another story between another film between the original characters. I feel like this film should have been called Jurassic Kingdom. Probably would have had more oomph and impact to it. Jurassic World Dominion, either though it sounds good, it just, their Dominion, it's the Dominion of, like, you know, your own territory. That's what it is. It could have been more dinosaurs. It could have been more interactions with the dinosaurs. There felt like no threat until the one scene with the Gigantosaurus, which was a callback to the very first Jurassic Park movie where they come and have an encounter with the T-Rex. That was it. I feel like Colin Trevorrow wanted to know what he was doing, but he just didn't know. This is set 4 years after the events of Fallen Kingdom, and it's interesting to see now these dinosaurs are part of the world, and at the end they say, like, what can we do? They're just part of our world now. They give glimpses of horses running along with the dinosaurs, the Mosasaurus in the ocean with the, you know, the big whales. And it's just, the aspect of the cinematography and the CGI was good, but you could tell that the close-up scenes were animatronic, which was great. You need those scenes where it's close-ups, the animatronics. It was a nice callback. CGI, a little wonky at times. Like I said, it was a more so callback to the franchise. I feel like they brought everybody in from the entire franchise as cameos, including certain, you know, characters we saw in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. With that, you have the original characters. It felt that it wasn't cohesive enough to be a movie where I want to say, okay, this is a good, solid ending to a big franchise. Don't make any more movies after this. Just leave it at this, and that's it. If you do make another movie, because if numbers come back and the box office is good, sit down for maybe about 5 to 10 years, maybe 5 to 7. Let's give it 5 to 7 years. Come up with a good story, and then in that next movie, call it Jurassic Kingdom. I feel like, and then after that, that's it. Jurassic Kingdom feels like a smart title for it, which this should have been called. For me, Jurassic World Dominion gets 2 out of 5 stars. I wanted to like it. I just felt like they needed more dinosaurs. 85% of the movie is all humans. The other 15% is dinosaurs. That's it. I mean, and then the villains need to be fleshed out more. There were good characters in this that drove the story. They were badass characters, but it overshadowed the look of what actually this franchise should be and has been. I feel like it just lacked. It was great seeing the original, you know, characters from the first Jurassic Park movie in this, but I feel like they just threw them in there for fanfare. And if they didn't just throw them in there for fanfare and actually gave them a good story, meaning that putting them aside in an underlining story and not part of the main story, it would have been an interesting film. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought about Jurassic World Dominion. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you think of it? Do you think that this is the end of the Jurassic Park franchise? Or do you think there needs to be one more film? And what other title would you have given this movie instead of Jurassic World Dominion? My pick would have been Jurassic Kingdom. It would have had a nice fitting end to it, and, you know, and I feel like Steven Spielberg needed to come back to close out this franchise. It just would have been poetic. It would have been perfect. And did you like seeing the OG characters from the first Jurassic Park movie come in? And do you think that they had a good enough story to bring them back? If you didn't, let me know why. So let me know in the comment section below about the questions I just asked. And also let me know what rating you would give Jurassic World Dominion. Do you think there could have been more dinosaurs? Let me know about all the questions I just asked in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next review video.